All right, today is the first lesson in Unit 3, and we're going to be learning about solving proportions. So we're basically going to summarize all the different ways we can solve for a proportion. We can use equivalent ratios, which means we'd want to get the denominator to be the same for each and then compare the numerators. Then the other thing to be looking at is algebra. Since you have a proportion with a variable, you can undo the operations that are happening to that variable. In this case, you'd be multiplying both sides by 36 and then solve that way. And finally, the last method would be cross products. And in a ratio, you have that the cross products of the ratio are equal, so you can come up with an equation and solve it. So let's take a look at this. So every pair of ratio has two cross products. The cross products is the product of the numerator of one ratio and the denominator of the other. If they are equivalent ratios, their cross products are also equal. So 3 times 10 would be equal to 5 times 6. These ratios are equivalent. 2 times 11 and 6 times 3 shows that these ratios are not equivalent. So the ratios are equal and the cross products are also equal in the first one. But in the second one, the ratios are not equal and the cross products are not equal. And this holds true for all of them. So we can use cross products to tell whether two ratios form a proportion. If the cross products are equal, then the ratios form a proportion. So this is important. If the cross products are equal, then the ratios form a proportion. So in the first example, we're going to determine if the ratios form a proportion. And the way we're going to do that is do the cross products. So evaluate 12 times 50 and evaluate 20 times 32 to see what they are equal to. Since 600 does not equal 640, the ratios do not form a proportion. And if you were asked a question like this, you would say, no, the cross products are not equal. So then you can summarize the property. In words, the cross products of a proportion are equal. That's if it's a proportion. In numbers, you could show 2 times 15 and 5 times 6, and then using the variables, of course, a times d equals b times c, and that's if b and d are not 0, because dividing by 0 is undefined. So let's use it to solve some proportions. Example 2. In this case, we're going to actually set up and write a proportion. So here's the problem. Human hair grows at 7/10 of a centimeter in 2 weeks. How long does hair take to grow 14 centimeters? So there's an implied rate. The rate is the 7/10 of a centimeter in 2 weeks, and we can write that as a ratio. And then you would have to put the 14 in a ratio, and you'd have to set that up because we have to be comparing things across the equal sign that are the same. So in the numerator, we had the length, and in the denominator, the time. So for the second ratio, we need the length, which is 14 centimeters, and then the unknown value is the time. And so by using the cross products, we would have an equation. Okay. So you kind of, in a way, maybe set up a general ratio saying, I'm going to compare length to time, and then make sure that you set it up exactly the same on both sides of the equal sign. So we would have 7/10 times x is equal to 2 times 14. And then if you solve for x, we will find that it would take 40 weeks. So then you would express your answer with a label, 40 weeks. Okay, let's try another one. In this problem, we have for every $25 you earn, you save $15. How much of the $70 you earned at your job this week will you save? So like I said, if you set up a generic, like I'm going to write my ratios with ink here instead of highlighter, it might work a little better. I'm going to write my ratios as an earn to save ratio. Then I can say that for my $25 that I earn, I save $15. That'll help me know where to put this $70. Since it is an earned value, it goes in the numerator, and then my denominator would be x. So using the cross products to write my equation would be 15 times 70. Divide both sides by 25. And I find that x is equal to $42 saved, and you want to make sure to label your answer. Okay, let's just practice using the cross product rule, and in this case you'll have to use distributive property because in the denominator here you have an expression, and in the numerator here you have an expression. So when you set this up, you would have and how it doesn't matter which goes on which side of the equal sign. So okay, so when you evaluate 5,880, and then you have an expression here which will then form a two-step equation. So solve, undo the addition subtraction first. Divide by 40 as your last step, and you get x is equal to 140 for this first one. In this one, okay, simplify. Subtract the 240 from both sides. Bring down your negative 8x. Divide by negative 8. And then simplify. It's either a positive 3/4 or, if you're dividing in your calculator, 75 hundredths. And you don't need both of those answers, just one will do.